Welcome to Season of Stuck, the podcast that takes a deep dive into the all-too-human experience of feeling stuck. I'm your host, Deanna, and on this podcast, we explore all things stuck. How and why stuckness happens, what it feels like, how to learn and grow from it, and ultimately, how to get unstuck and move forward in an authentic, empowered way. If you are looking for insights, support, and community as you make your journey from stuck to unstuck, you're in the right place. Now, let's jump into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Season of Stuck. My name is Deanna. I am your host. On this podcast, we are all about exploring what it means to be stuck, what that experience feels like, and how we can make the journey from stuck to unstuck, and not only step into the next version of ourselves and our lives, but also support each other along the way. So if you're feeling stuck, let me just say that you have landed in the right place, and we are so thrilled to have you. Thank you for tuning in. So today is the last day of 2024, which honestly is hard to believe. I, like many people, tend to get really reflective around this time of year. I always use New Year's as an opportunity to reflect on the past year and all of its successes and challenges and lessons. And while there is much to reflect on for 2024, one of the biggest changes in my life and one of the things that I am the most proud of is this podcast. I started 2024 feeling extremely stuck. And it was through the process of making this podcast that I not only got myself unstuck, but stepped into a new and exciting and purposeful chapter of my journey, both professional and personal. And so I am ending 2024 feeling extremely grateful. Grateful to the past version of me that pushed through the fear and self-doubt and not stepped, but jumped out of her comfort zone to try something completely new. Grateful to every guest that took the time to chat with me and share their experience and insights and expertise. And grateful for you, the listener. Thank you for being here, for listening week after week, and for reaching out and sharing your own experiences with stuckness and with listening to this podcast. Hearing from you, whether that's to share how an episode impacted you or helped you make a step towards getting unstuck or made you feel less alone, has been one of the absolute highlights of my year. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for sharing your stories and experiences. Now, those are my 2024 reflections. But what about 2025? For me, the new year is also an opportunity to look at the year ahead and figure out what I want that year to look like, what I want to take with me, and what I want to leave behind, and how I want to approach any stuckness that I may find myself facing in the coming year. And to find those answers, I turned here to the podcast. Now, if you listen to Season of Stuck on the regular, you know that towards the end of every episode, I ask each guest the same question, which is, if your ideal future self could travel back in time and talk to the current version of yourself, what advice do you think they would give you on how to navigate stuckness at this point in your life? And their answers, they always blow me away. The guest may be giving advice to their current self, but my current self always benefits from what they have to say. And so, when I started thinking about 2025 and what I want the year to look like, I had a bit of a light bulb moment and thought, why not revisit some of those answers and tap into that future self wisdom to help shape the year ahead? And so that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to take a little trip down memory lane and revisit some of our 2024 guests and see what their future selves have to say about how to better navigate stuckness as we step into this new year. Let's start with Julia Christina. Julia is a Vancouver-based clinical counselor, and she was a guest on our 4th episode, where we talked about how to better manage overthinking and get unstuck in the process. When I asked Julia for her future self's advice on navigating stuckness in the present, Future Julia offered a fantastic reminder to not get stuck in doubting ourselves and to do what we want to do, even if it feels like we're not ready.
There are people less qualified than you, less experienced than you, and less of an expert than you who are doing what you want to be doing simply because they've decided that they can. Get out of your own way and get going. You have what it takes. Put in the work, put in the time, but do not let your self-doubt drive the bus anymore.
Our next piece of New Year's advice comes from author and sensitivity expert Jen Graneman, who joined us on episode 9, where we explored how sensitivity, which is sometimes viewed as a trait that can keep us stuck, can actually be a superpower. Jen's future self offered a helpful reminder that even when we feel like we're stuck or trapped or not moving forward, we need to stay the course and keep going. And eventually, we'll get to where we want to go.
I'm thinking about myself at different periods in my life, and I think the me of different periods of my life might need to hear different things, but overall, I would say keep going. Keep going. I think there's been times in my life when I felt like giving up, and I felt like nothing will ever change, nothing will ever get better. But it did, right? It did shift. And I think back to every obstacle I've had to overcome, and there have been some really, really bad ones. But, it worked out in the end. It maybe didn't work out exactly the way I wanted it to or exactly what I was envisioning, but I kept going. So yeah, I would say keep going.
Next up, we have Britt Frank, the brilliant therapist and author behind the book, The Science of Stuck, Breaking Through Inertia to Find Your Path Forward. Britt joined us in episode 5, where we discussed, you guessed it, the science of stuck and what is actually happening in our brains and bodies when we experience stuckness. Britt had so many incredible evidence-based strategies for dealing with stuckness, and her future self had some incredible advice as well.
So future self says to me now, there's not an ideal. There's not a place you get to. It's keep doing the thing. Like everything you need, you have inside you, and anything you need. And again, I'm not talking basic needs and resources. I'm talking like, generally speaking, the soul stuff that enables us to shoot for our dreams and reach for the stars and all that stuff. Everything you have, you already have installed. So it's not like you go from this less than version to this greater than version. Every step of the way, we get to become more us. So future me is like, you're going to have so much fun uncovering all these other aspects of yourself. Like we're not changing who you are, we're becoming who you are. And that's fun.
Now, I'm an action-oriented person. So I love advice that offers actionable strategies for dealing with stuckness. And that is exactly what I got from my next guest. Dr. Markia Nichols is the Chief Medical Officer of the integrative health platform, Ciba Health. And her future self not only came through with the helpful reminder to have more fun on the journey from stuck to unstuck, but also offered a strategy for how to incorporate that sense of fun into the journey.
My future self would definitely tell me to have more fun. And I think what that means for me is like one of the things I like to have people do actually is create a joy list. It's like, that list of 10 things that really don't involve anybody else, but that you could pick any of those and it's going to break you free in the moment. So she would say, make sure you're following your joy list and you're doing something on that list every day. Whether it's dancing, for me, you said dancing was like, that's definitely my thing as well, and being out in nature. So it would be to just enjoy life more.
Our last piece of advice today, advice for navigating stuckness in the new year, comes from Tim Reitzma, the host of the Invisible Condition podcast, a podcast that features personal stories of people living with invisible conditions. A podcast that I actually had the pleasure of being a guest on myself, talking about my experience living with rheumatoid arthritis and Hashimoto's. Tim's future self came through with a reminder that really hit home for me and spoke to a place where many of us often find ourselves stuck, and that is getting caught in negative self-talk.
Future Tim would tell current Tim that the stress you're putting on yourself through that self-dialogue is pointless. It's not serving you. It's causing your guts to hurt when they don't need to hurt. So stop that self-talk. Embrace the season you're in. It might go horribly wrong. It might go horribly right, but it's just a data point in this life that you're living. That's what future Tim would say.
What incredible insight and advice. To quickly recap, as you move into the new year, don't let self-doubt stop you from pursuing the things you want to pursue. Remember that at the soul level, you already have everything you need to get unstuck. Have more fun and make a joy list to remind yourself of what fun looks like when you're feeling stuck. And when you talk to yourself, whether you're stuck or not, be a little nicer. You deserve it. That is all advice that current Deanna needed to hear. And it's advice that I'll be taking with me into 2025. And I hope you take that advice with you too. Because chances are you're going to feel stuck in the new year. And so will I. But remember, no matter how stuck you feel, there are ways to move towards getting unstuck. And we will be here to support you as you make those moves in 2025 and beyond. That's all we have for today. But before we go, let me say again, thank you to every guest that came on Season of Stuck in 2024, including the guests whose advice we highlighted today. And thank you to every single person that tuned into the show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing this journey from stuck to unstuck. We have so many new and exciting things coming in the new year, and I can't wait to share them all with you. We'll be back next Tuesday with another incredible expert interview. And until then, wishing you the happiest of New Year's. That's it for today. A huge thank you to you, our listeners. We know that there are so many podcasts out there to choose from, and we are just so grateful that you chose ours. If you enjoyed today's episode, consider recommending the podcast to a friend or family member that you think would enjoy it. And to make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever it is you get your podcasts. And while you're there, if you loved the show, please consider leaving a 5-star review. It plays such a huge part in getting this podcast out to a wider audience and ultimately supporting more people on their journey from stuck to unstuck. And to keep in touch and access even more stuck-related content, follow us on Instagram at Season of Stuck and visit our website, seasonofstuck.com, where you can sign up to get episodes delivered directly to your inbox. Thank you again for being here. It is so, so appreciated. Until next time, I'm Deanna DeBera, and you're listening to Season of Stuck.